Hello, welcome to Shad Life. Well, I got my 165 millimeter cranks in, and so I decided, I want to do a video on trying them out and things like that. But I decided since I need to install them, I might as well do an install video on basically what the process is to install a Shimano crank. So this would be like SLX. Deore, I believe, uses the same system. I'm not 100% sure if their lower end crank does, but I know SLX, XT, and I believe XTR all use the same system. So we'll go ahead and do that. I'm going to install it on my Esker Hayduk tie, and the reason for that is that bike currently anyway has a Shimano HG driver, because that's what came with the bird spoke wheels. They actually ordered me a microspline driver, and I have yet to go over there and pick it up. They're probably like, what the heck, when is Shad going to come pick up this driver? But that 12-speed Shimano cassette is a Sun Race one, and it'll directly switch over to my trainer, which is a Wahoo kicker. You might be figuring out what I'm going to do here, because what I want to do is take this bike, put it on my trainer, and then I have to swap out the cassette and do some different length crank testing on my trainer. Kind of debating on whether I actually need to change out the crank on here back and forth on the trainer, or if I can just switch between my Jaffe and this bike to get an idea of how it feels, because they're basically geared and sized almost identically. They just have different size wheels, and on the trainer, geometry isn't really going to matter. So I'll figure that out, but I definitely want to do the install today. So here we go. So I have everything I need to do this install. The crank, does it tell me the length here? Yep, 165. And then the other side. What I like about Shimano cranks is their two-piece design, and actually SRAM dub cranks are also a two-piece design, but what's cool is that it's a lot lighter weight when you can just have a hollow spindle, and then your crank only mounts on one side, and you can't really mess this up. It only fits one way, unlike BMX cranks where you can, if you're not careful, you can actually mount them not perfectly 180 degrees from each other. These, there's a little notch, so they have to be correct. But we need to mount the chainring first, and I have all the parts for that. I actually got the tool. So this is the LRT4, specific for a Shimano lock ring on here, wherever that is. I don't even know where that is. Maybe it's in the box. And then I got this so I can actually use my new torque wrench. That'll be pretty cool. And then of course I got the chainring. Now I just have to figure out where the little lock piece is. Hopefully it came with and I don't have to order that like separately, or maybe this is it. I don't know. Guess we'll figure it out. Yep, it was in there in the box. I figured that had to come with it, and I'll have to figure out what these are for. I'm sure they serve a purpose. Oh, these are, oh well, kind of learning as I go. So this is for the crank spindle, I know that much. This is for locking the chainring on, I know that much. And I don't know if these are the pieces that are supposed to go up against the bottom bracket. Maybe. Figure that out. Alright, cool, let's do this. Okay, one thing to know is if you look at this, you'll see there's a longer or wider spline there, or opening for a spline, and then there is one on here. So there's no way to incorrectly install this. There's only one way that it'll go on. So basically slide it on there and get that to line up. Pretty snug fit. Should just go right on there. There it goes. Now that's on there. Then take this and throw a little bit of grease on the threads. I haven't read anything that says I have to do that, but I tend to always grease the threads. And we'll slide that on. That goes in there, and then it just threads in. So that's pretty simple chainring install, and once this gets finger tight, so you can see the little lock ring, whatever you want to call it, goes on there, holds that on tight, and then this tool goes on there. Can even get it a little more snug. And then I could just take a big wrench on here, but what I want to do is get the proper torque spec. So usually a lot of the stuff will specify how much torque. Yep. So this says 30 to 50 Newton meters. That seems like a wide range. But I'll get my torque wrench out and set that all up and show you how that works. Okay, so we have the crank. Put the tool on there. Then I set this, I guess I'm just going to go to 40. I mean, I don't know, there's a range. Seems kind of weird. Maybe I can go a little past that. Definitely don't want this coming loose. And then make sure I'm turning the correct way. Yep. So definitely if you have one of these or use one of these, the Newton meters is on the left side. Facing this way. And then this guy goes on there. Should snap on there. This is my first time using this stuff. Alright, so I don't have a vise, so I'm just gonna have to, I really need a vise. See if I can do this in my hand. I should be able to. Maybe I can't. Maybe this is where a vise comes in handy. It sure would be nice to know I can get it there. Oh, there it is. Ugh. Whew. Having a vise would be handy. Of course, I turned that and the tool fell off. But there it is. It's all nice and mounted and good to go. Now we can install it on the bike. So I got to take the old crankset off first, but the SLX is direct compatible with this crankset. The only difference is I'll have 165 crank arm, and I went down to a 30T chainring, and this is 170 and 32. So aside from that, it's pretty much just a direct swap out, same bottom bracket, everything like that. And that'll give me an opportunity to do some cleaning in here because that obviously needs to be done. While I have this moment, these Wolf Tooth Wafeform pedals, I really only did the intro video to them and haven't talked a lot about them ever since, but they are everything that I thought they would be. The concave in here is so nice and super grippy. And the reason they're on this bike is this is the bike I probably beat up the least. So there's a little bit of, markings from probably laying the bike down and stuff like that. But overall, these aren't very beat up. They don't have like major rock strikes or anything on them yet. So pretty cool. There's a video I just had recently on my channel. where I did the super technical rock garden at Theodore Worth, and these were the pedals I had on there, and I didn't even like bang them up doing that, which is kind of surprising. Maybe a little bit here and there, but all right, cool. Let's finish this crank install. But yes, Wolf Tooth Waveform pedals. There's 2 sizes. If you're willing to spend the money, I think these are the best pedal on the market right now. I would say that's pretty dirty. Time to clean that up, because depending on how this experiment goes, these will end up back on here. And I can get in here and clean all this up. So I'm going to do that, and then we'll go ahead and do the other crankset. So I was trying to figure out what those spacers were for, and what I did is I took these 2 cranksets, press them together like this. Oh, let's do it on this side so you can see, not just me. And if you look, the SLX spindle is quite a bit wider than the XT crank that came on there. So that would mean I should probably use those spacers. So that's interesting. I haven't seen that yet. I don't know if that's a new thing or what, but or maybe it allows you to have different bottom bracket widths or something like that for the same crankset. Very interesting. But yeah, I'll use those spacers because they will take up about that much room. So just to verify, I went on this site called YouTube. It's this place where they have a lot of videos with how-tos and cool information. If you haven't heard of it, you might want to check it out. But I know that I need to use these spacers, and this little rubber kind of side gasket type thing or O-ring that's built into it goes towards the bottom bracket. So I just wanted to verify that I was doing the right thing, and I am. So kind of been doing this long enough to kind of figure this stuff out, but I always want to verify to make sure I'm doing it correctly, because I have definitely done things incorrectly by not verifying it. So yeah, let's go ahead and install these cranks. Okay, so for this side, now that I know I need to put this on there, I'm going to throw that spacer on. These are a pretty tight fit. I'll show you here in a second. I generally make sure I have a little bit of grease on the spindle and stuff, but this already had some on there, and there's plenty of grease in here from when I took the other cranks out, and it wasn't dirty. Despite how dirty the outside gets, the inside doesn't get that dirty. Kind of surprising. So we'll go ahead and tap this in. You definitely want to use something that's soft on the end so it doesn't mar or do any damage to your crankset. And I can give it a little harder whack if I need to, but it's going in, so I think I'm banging the microphone against my bike, which is probably really loud or annoying for you guys. All right, there we go. So that's on there. I'm going to flip the bike around and get a little closer so you can see what's going on the other side, because that's the more complicated part. So on this side, we definitely want to remember to put the spacer. Remember the little rubber ring to the inside. All right, and then we want to put the crank arm on there. There is only one way, as I mentioned earlier, that the crank arm can go on. And so it goes on there. I have this kind of funky special tool for a reason. Shimano cranks have this little plastic thing that should pop down, and if it doesn't, that means the crank, maybe I have to tighten it a little bit first. Let's do that. So this little plastic ring it doesn't have torque spec on it because it doesn't really hold the crank arm on. It's just important to know that this isn't supposed to get torqued down really tight. One of the things I dislike about this tool, which is a park tool for Shimano cranks, is that it has this little hook thing which is made to pop this plastic thing out. But if you're turning this, you don't want to go all the way around because it'll come in here and hit your crank arm and put a big mark in your crank arm, and I've actually done that before. So I want to get this pretty snug. This should pop down now. Oh, there it goes. So that locks into place. This is just a safety thing. This little plastic piece that pops in there. The fact that it popped down makes me feel confident that putting these spacers in there was the right thing, because it's all lined up for that to pop in, because there's a little hole this pops into. And then this can just get kind of snug. It doesn't have to be super cranked down. And then what's going to hold the cranks on is tightening these pinch bolts on here. And that's what actually tightens your crank arm. And there's torque spec for that. So I'm going to look that up and use my torque wrench again and tighten these cranks up. But I did want to mention this little hooky thing that I complained about earlier. What it's for, you could use a screwdriver or something else if you don't have this, but this has both parts. It has the right fit for this to tighten this, and then the little hook is made to pop this plastic thing out when you want to take the crank arm off, because you got to pop that out to get it off. But we don't want to take it off, so we're going to push that back down in there. And again, it's just a safety thing. So if for some reason your pinch bolts come loose, your crank arm isn't going to fall off. Or this falls out and your pinch bolts, you'd have to have a combination of things to happen. There are other crank sets that have a tension bolt out here and, you know, pinch bolts that don't have this, and I feel like it's maybe a little bit unnecessary, but it is what it is. So let me go get my torque wrench and we'll torque that down. But I gotta look up what that is, because it doesn't say on here. So it's quite a bit less than I thought it would be, but they say 12 to 14. I'm gonna go to 14. There's 20. There we go. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and get these fairly snug on here. I always alternate. I mean, I guess there it goes. That one just broke. Broke meaning the wrench hit its limit and clicks. And there's that one. That's kind of wild. I feel like that's not very much, but I mean, I guess if I think I've got this long leverage arm. So there you go. They are officially installed. All I have to do is put the pedals on, put the chain back on. Now here's another quick reminder. Well, let me put this away and I'll tell you this. Okay, so one thing that I did change, not the crank arm length doesn't really matter, but the fact that I went down to a 30 tooth from a 32 means there's going to be just a little bit more slack in the chain. So just an FYI, when you do this, if you ever change chainring size, make sure you come back here. You know, as long as they're within a few teeth, you shouldn't have to take a link out of the chain. You'll want to come back here and check your B limit screw. And if your B limit screw is all the way in, then you might have to remove a link from the chain. But you just want to check your B gap and your B limit screw and all of that, and make sure everything's still in order and works exactly as spec'd. Otherwise, you're going to have too loose of a chain. I might not have to change anything. I guess I'll figure that out here in a few minutes, but I just want to bring that up. This is installed, ready to go. I'm excited to try this out. And so, like I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this bike in the trainer. I'll swap the cassette over because this is a 12-speed. The cassette on my trainer right now is a road cassette, so it's an 11-speed. So I'll put this cassette on there, pop this bike on there, and ride it and get some initial impressions. And we'll see if I feel a difference right away. Like, will I notice that the crank arms are shorter? I definitely will probably notice the gearing, that it'll be a little easier, and then I'll have to shift into a smaller ring from what I'm normally used to over here. But we'll see how this combo works. I've read a whole lot of different opinions about this, but I want to know for myself what it's like. And then, so I'll do that video, kind of an initial impression video, and then I'll do another video where I compare the 170s to 165s. Might even go and take some 175 cranks that I have. I think I have them on my low side. I'm not sure what the other ones are on this other bike because I initially got those cranks for single speed, so they might be 175. But then I can go a 10 millimeter difference and just kind of do some experimental stuff. It'll be a good winter project, and doing it on the trainer, the nice thing is my watts actually show up there, and so I can get an idea of how much power, if I'm losing power, gaining power, and I can choose a route where I have a climb, and I'll choose the same climb between cranksets and stuff like that. So I think that'll be kind of fun. So yeah, there you go. Full install. Looks good. Of course, everything's new. Going down in spec on the crankset, but that was because I didn't want to spend a ton of money on this experiment. But if I end up liking 165, I might go and get like a really nice, expensive crankset, like a 5-dab or something like that. We'll see. Appreciate your support for my channel. Please like and subscribe. Peace.